Hello, this is Friendly Cat. This is a Hearts of Iron 4 guide to divisions for achievement runs or challenging single-player scenarios. Our overall philosophy is to spend the least amount of IC possible on inexpensive units that trade favorably in defense, so that we have the most IC available to purchase inexpensive units that trade favorably in offense or attacking. We'll also take a look at the tank designs, airplane designs, and ship designs that we would use in achievement runs. For the purpose of this overview, we're going to be looking at technology research through 1939. I know in many of our runs we actually complete most of it prior to the middle of 1939, but some of our runs last through 1939 and some actually last later. So let's build the research as if we had. And we'll actually be looking at both 1936 and 1940 plane. Let's get started with our infantry. Our first infantry is the defensive 3 garrison division. We'll be using icons that I often use in my playthroughs. Try to use consistent icons, make it easier to remember which type of units do what. So this shark or fish icon is generally used for port defense. These 3 infantry garrisons will not be placed on the front line. We're going to place them on ports where we don't expect to be attacked. So in anything but savory run, as we head east through Iran, we might put it on the different ports, and as we go into the barrage, we'll send them here as well. Do we expect them to be attacked on those ports? No, but by having a division on each of the different ports, it makes it just a little bit harder for a naval invasion to occur. Our next division is the 12 width garrison division. This division also is not designed for front line use. We're going to put it on spots that are more likely to be attacked in a naval invasion, like maybe we put one on each of the different Suez Canal tiles. We might use them to help bolster a defense down here in southern Egypt, or maybe a little bit extra on a few ports that we expect to be attacked. They're also very good divisions for building up or transitioning to a larger division. If you have an extra 10,000, 20,000 infantry guns, well, you know what, maybe spit out 24 or 48 of these at the lowest training rate at 20%, and then send them to exercise, because infantry weapons have a very high reliability. They can exercise up to a higher level of veterancy without losing a lot of equipment. The next division is maybe the best defensive division in the game. It's a 6 infantry division with 1 support artillery. It's particularly effective because we're going to be going superior firepower right side, and for the purpose of this guide we've researched 4 doctrines deep into superior firepower, which is approximately where we might be in the middle of 1939, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. Very cost efficient. This may be the highest highest soft attack per IC division in the game. Very good at defending ports, very good at defending places where we need to defend, and it's also a good front line defender. I emphasize it's a good defender, so it trades favorably in defense. It's a fair amount of defense, fair amount of soft attack, very, very low IC. So we really like to make quite a bit of these. The last of our defense division is a 6 battalion infantry with engineers. So that engineers help give it more entrenchment, so that it can entrench additional 10%. That's 5 is actually 2 entrenchment levels, 2% per entrenchment. It also gives us better defense in certain terrains and better attack. Just a little bit better than its slightly softer or weaker 6 garrison with the support artillery. But both of these are good defensive units. We're going to go into 2 rather unusual ones, the first of which is the Cav. This we use as a scout unit. It's fast cavalry, or maybe the fastest unit across all terrain types. In other words, if you're moving across Russia or Poland or Germany, any places that have a combination of mountains, swamps, forests, plains, rivers, cavalry are as fast. They may not seem like it because the 6.4 kilometers per hour is not as fast as a motorized, but there are no movement malices. No movement malices. So give them recon, give them engineers, and they'll move very fast. And with the support artillery, they'll do pretty well for themselves. They also don't run out of fuel, So if you're in a moderate supply, if you're outrunning your supply hubs, they work great in areas of low supply. Maybe if you're attacking Russia and you're moving out here, maybe up into here. If you're attacking in China, out here, a lot of places that have low supply hubs, these 12 width or 6 battalion cavalry units work well as scout. Their low breakthrough means they are poor offensive unit, and they have decent defense and soft attack, but their high IC makes them a lower value or kind of expensive defensive unit. The next unit, the 9-1. Oh, we like the 9-1. It's a 21 width. That's pretty cool. I like it. But unfortunately, it kind of fits somewhere in the middle. It's a little bit expensive for a defensive unit, but it's also a little bit weak for an offensive unit, so it doesn't fit in a really good place. If I'm just looking for a frontline defender, I'm going to probably want to take a look at one of these two. And if I want to attack and I want to trade more favorably, I'm going to want something with a little bit more breakthrough and probably a little bit more soft attack. So it fits in a kind of a no man's land here in the middle. You can think of, oh, a compromise unit, that's good, it can be used for both. But that's not really what we want to do. We don't want to necessarily build compromised units. We don't always build the perfect unit, but we might want, instead of building 3 or 4 or 6 or 8 of these, we might want to build fewer units that are better at attacking, that trade more favorably in attacking, and then we'll build more units that trade more favorably in defending, so they can kind of cover the attack or the advance of the better units. So I do know there's a lot of videos, a lot of compliments about how the 21 width is a great unit. I don't use it very much. Its related unit is this 18 width 6-2, which actually looks a lot like the 21. And the reason we use this is because its soft attack is just a little bit more, its soft attack per IC is just a little bit better than 21 width. It also transitions well into some of our better offensive units. This is a great unit for closing pockets. The 21 width would do that as well, but it works better as a transition into the larger, more better frontline attacking units. But we would use this as well, particularly in an early war. The 27 width. Yeah, this is not a secret division. This is kind of a well-known division. You've probably seen it in a lot of other videos or guides. This is a great division. I'm not inventing anything new here. It's high soft attack, okay breakthrough, high soft attack per IC. The artillery works really well. This is an effective division. What's even better than this guy is his friend here, the 27 width with a medium tank on the front. Particularly in the first few years of the game, this 33 armor effectively quadruples the firepower of the entire unit, so it does much better. In addition, Germany tends to build anti-air units, and those anti-air units have trouble piercing half of this armor, or they can't pierce the armor, and they can't even pierce half of it, which means these trade very favorably against Germany as well. A great offensive unit. Now we're moving into mobility. I'm a big fan of speed and mobility, as you may know if you've seen my other videos, and this is the first of the mobile units. And the numbers here aren't that impressive, particularly if we compare to the infantry units, but the mobility is fantastic. A 12 kilometers per hour, that lets them move around quite a bit. They've got a fair amount of soft attack. The breakthrough is actually pretty impressive. This is an excellent mobility unit. And I decided to put this over here just because I do use this in some of our runs. It seems relatively weak. It's just over 30 org, and of course this is the middle of 1939, so it's a little bit better than what we might see in a run in 38 or so, but it's got its medium tank. And the reason it's got the 12 kilometers per hour speed is because this is a kind of an unusual tank, and then I focused on speed. The armor is actually slightly lower than an infantry version, so it's not going to perform as well, and it's more expensive as far as armor goes, but it's fast, so it doesn't slow down the mobility. Mobility is an important part of not just encirclements, but also advancing and potentially doing overruns. You've seen this, probably seen this division as well before. This is a 27 width, very similar to the 27 width infantry division, just swapping out motorized and motorized artillery. An excellent division. If you're using this division, you're doing a great job. High combat width, high breakthrough, high soft attack, great use. I'll tend to try to put a medium tank on the front just to give it that armor. By the time at least that we're doing this tech area, by the middle of 1939, you're going to start seeing more and more anti-tank weapons, which make this medium tank not particularly effective. So you may find yourself, if you find yourself finding more and more divisions with anti-tank, you may say, well, this is actually a better division, and I think you'd be right. Of course, when you do run across a division that doesn't have anti-tank, or if you're fighting the Germans who typically use support anti-air, this division will still do very well. So even though it does cost more than this division, a higher IC amount, because it will occasionally run into units that don't have support anti-tank, then it actually fares pretty well. This is a very expensive, a big unit, and it is very effective as well. This is the largest and biggest, most expensive unit we have here. I almost never use in achievement runs some of the, I call it the juggernaut units that you might see in some of the guides that have 4, 5, 6 medium tanks, 4 motorized, 6 or 3 or 4 support artillery. Sometimes I even see cav mixed in there. Those juggernaut units, I respect that concept, but I'm looking for the least expensive unit that will still trade favorably. And this is really close to it. As, by 1939, this will probably do a little bit better and be a little bit better favorable trade. But because of how armor works, having 4 or more medium tanks doesn't do nearly as well, in my opinion, than having more divisions like this. In other words, a front medium tank on the front. We're going to go into some unusual divisions, or divisions we use in rare cases. Paratroopers. This is pretty much it. This is the default paratrooper template when you research paratroopers. Sometimes I'll put an engineer or support artillery on the front, but they're typically used for drops, and I don't really want to waste the support equipment or artillery if the drop doesn't work out, and manpower and infantry is kind of cheap. I know it's kind of talking callously about the paratroopers here, but if honestly, having engineers or support artillery isn't going to save them if they drop on an enemy division. The next of the unusual divisions is here, the Garrison 1 Inf. I like to roll the dice on these. These are not for frontline defense. These are not for rear defense or not for attack by any case. Their low HP means they will get strength destroyed if they go into combat. What they are is really good at certain events and certain decisions, and focuses rely on having a certain number of divisions to, not to say scare, but to encourage other AI-controlled countries to fear you and to respect you. So building 200, 300, 400 of these. Switzerland might use this division to build a couple hundred to convince France and Italy that they're a big, powerful nation and to give up part of their land for their decisions. And there may be other achievement runs that use this. Relatively few achievement runs, but they still do. It can also be used when you're looking to send divisions to a far-off land that you plan to fight there later. So maybe if you're in Italy and you take out France, but you haven't yet gone to war with England, and you want to someday defend this land, you might annex France and then send 12 or 16 1-battalion infantry divisions. Very inexpensive. Just drop them here, and while you're fighting with Germany, have a good time. And as you're prepared to go to war with the Allies and you realize you're going to face off against the Raj and they might naval invade you, well, maybe at that point, maybe convert the 12 you sent over, the 16 or however many you sent over here, maybe convert 8 of them over to 3 widths to kind of guard the port a little bit. Maybe convert another 8 into 6 widths. And that way you don't have to wait for the divisions to transfer over here. I hope that's not an exploit. It doesn't feel like too much of an exploit, but if you feel like it is, then of course you should. I would recommend against using it. But by converting them and having them already over here, they don't have to travel through the ocean before they convert. The last of the 2 divisions, or division type, are the police. are the divisions we use for garrisons. So at the very least, we should be using a single battalion cavalry. This is the most cost-effective way to garrison absent military police. So as soon as you take over a land for which you've got garrison issues, or which there are maybe resistance, or which there is resistance, you're going to want to build a division like this. I think this looks like a little cat. I make a little cat face, call it the police. I generally use a division template that I'm never going to use. I'm never going to build mountain divisions. And then just place this as the division template for resistance. Because resistance is pretty tough, and I eventually will go over to military police, I will eventually make a division like this. For the purpose of resistance, this division and this division are the same thing. They have the same level of effectiveness. There's no advantage to doing this, except it has to do with timing and how I'm going to get military police. So I'll take proper heritage, which reduces the cavalry unit cost to by 100%, which means they're free. And then I'll add a bunch of cavalry battalions so that it looks like this, and it won't cost any additional army experience. It still costs the 35 to take that spirit, 35 army experience to take, that spirit of the army. It'll still cost 35, but then I don't have to spend the 100 plus or so to advance down here. And then later on, when we have military police and enough support, then I'll drop a military police on here, and this becomes the most cost-effective way to deal with resistance. You do need to have support, which can be hard to come by, but in terms of overall, I see this is the most cost-effective. This is like a little, I guess, a wolf to me, or it's supposed to be a wolf. I don't like it as a lion, like a big cat. And this is a kind of a soft cat. Here, kitty kitty. This is more of a tiger. I don't think wolf was probably more accurate. In other words, it's got more ferocity, so it's got the military police. Well, that concludes the different divisions we're going to be using and how we use them. So there's no, I think, perfect tank design, but I'm going to just show you the ones that I'll often be using. So for infantry tank, for that tank in that 27 width, we're looking for the lowest production cost with the highest armor that stays above speed 4. So we'll use a heavy machine gun, we'll use a single one-man turret, one-man turret, then we'll use sloped armor for more armor, and then suspension, bogey suspension, we'll use cast armor, we'll use a gasoline engine because of how it affects speed, and then we'll put as much armor as we can to stay above at least 4 kilometers per hour. And that gives us 76.1 for a very low production cost of 7.15. We're not in it for the breakthrough, we're not in it for the soft attack, we're not in it for the piercing, we've got support anti-air for that. This is just designed to help our infantry divisions stay above enemy piercing and ideally be twice as high as enemy piercing so they can become 4 times as effective. In the early parts of the war, early parts of 36, 37, 38, when there isn't a lot of anti-tank support equipment out there, this division and its low cost, this type of tank as a battalion in an infantry division is extremely effective. Its more expensive older brother here is the motorized. This is a motorized tank, but really it's a tank designed for a motorized division. That's because its speed is 12.3 kilometers per hour, which is the next fastest speed above 11.9, so that it does not slow down those motorized divisions. It's a bit more expensive, it has less armor, it still has a heavy machine gun, one-man turret, and it has sloped armor. It uses wet ammunition storage for reliability, and it has armor skirts. It uses 20% speed, cast iron, and gasoline engine as well, so that this tank does not slow down the motorized units while also giving them armor. There are no expensive tanks in my designs, and that's not entirely true. If you've seen some of my runs, you may say, hey, that's not true. I've seen you build some really expensive tanks, and sometimes I do, depending on the IC and the type of run, but this would be more effective than an expensive tank most of the time. And this would be, I think, a more of an ideal tank, and I do often build something like this. Depending on whoever guides or the videos you've seen, you say, hey, that's not a new type of plane, Friendly Cat. I've seen that a lot of other places. Yeah, it is. It's not a particularly unique design by any means. It's bomb locks on the front, In this case, it's a 4 heavy machine guns, so it's classified as a CAS, but it's multi-role, which means it can, if necessary, it could go into air superiority, but typically we're going to use it in the close air support role. It has 1 engine 2. This, although I'm going to show you a 1940 airplane, this would be a plane before 1940. We also have self-sealing fuel tanks and armor plates. Right now, this seems to be one of the best, if not the best, airplane because we can put it on close air support. We can take advantage of the battlefield support doctrines and eventually down here to pick up a 20% agility. So it's very effective. At some point this may be balance patched out so it's not nearly as effective. Maybe these will give less armor or less air defense, but right now this is again, in my opinion, and I think in others, some of the other opinions guides, this is one of those times I will agree with the other guides I've seen out there. This is either the most effective or a very effective plane. Another effective plane is this 1940 plane. Many of my runs are done by mid-1940, but if you've got some kind of a research that gives you advance, then we might actually have this during a tough part of the fight, particularly against Germany in 1942 or 1943. It looks very similar to the 1936. We just add another heavy machine gun, and we will add drop tanks to the end to give it additional range. The primary purpose of my planes is to survive, shoot at enemy planes, and provide ground support. I want them to cast, don't get me wrong, I like them to cast, but I want them to provide ground support. I want them to help my land divisions do damage. So that's why you're not seeing additional modules up here to do more ground damage. So this guy, he only does 6 ground attack, which really isn't that much, but it's something. But most importantly, he's going to have great survivability, great range. He's going to shoot down enemy planes. He's going to shoot down enemy fighters. If he finds casts, he'll shoot those down too. He'll survive, and he'll give me both air superiority over the battlefield and ground support, so that my very expensive, in some cases, offensive unit can hit even harder. The last, if you've seen my other guides, you know what we're going to be building: subs. I say this is a Navy guide, but really the only thing we're going to be building is subs, and it's going to look something like this. The biggest engine, 2 torpedo tubes, and that's that. If this was 1940 sub, we'd put another torpedo tube and a snorkel here, but it's pretty straightforward. Subs are very powerful in achievement runs. We don't, at least I don't build destroyers, cruisers, battleships, carriers, as long as subs are so powerful and so effective. That's what we're building. Well, I hope this guide is helpful and you deciding what kind of divisions work for you, but also as you watch some of the other guides and as you play the game, this should help you become maybe a little bit more effective, particularly for those difficult achievement runs. Hope you have a great day. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave below.